In the chamber this week, we pay respects for an important voice in the world of science, saving the universe with your friends from rats. We venture behind the DM screen and talk about encounters, and Wakanda Forever! We talk about Black Panther. All this and more on Fandom Roulette. Alright everyone, welcome back to Fandom Roulette. This is Joe.
And this is your not-so-sick boy, Cody.
See, I feel like we're meeting in the middle, because I feel like I'm on a slow decline to the world of sick.
Oh, no.
But that's what you get when you wear wet shoes all day.
Oh, God, why are you...
Because I'm outside in the snow for my job.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Cody, what nerdy stuff have you been up to as of late?
Well, two things. But I'm going to talk about one of them in the gaming section, as I usually do. But I watched the first 2 episodes of Jessica Jones Season 2 yesterday.
Oh, snap. How was that?
It is pretty good. It's very quality.
Nice.
What have you been up to?
I enjoy that. Well, once again, this is something we'll be talking about later, but I saw Black Panther over the weekend, so we can have our Black Panther conversation, like a month after the fact.
Yeah!
Yeah, we're nothing but timely on this podcast. And yesterday was my birthday, and it was just filled with nerdy, wonderful things, like Star Trek socks, and a baby Groot Bop It, and the silver edition of Flash Gordon on DVD, which actually is product coded to Great Britain, so I can only watch it on basically laptops that have don't have area restrictions.
Ooh.
I'm pretty excited though, because it has the Brian Blessed commentary track. Brian Blessed, of course, played Prince Vultan, the best character in Flash Gordon, and he has a whole commentary track where he just talks about his experiences making the movie, like when he was a little kid growing up, and how his favorite character was Prince Vultan, and how he was really excited because he got to be Prince Vultan, and the fact that he got to wear basically a metal Speedo the entire time, and you just get to see his gams the entire time. And by the way, if you've ever heard about this movie called Flash Gordon, I could talk a lot about Flash Gordon. It's basically the best movie ever made by mankind ever.
And I believe you talked about it in a previous episode.
Yeah, that was the bit. Yeah, no, outside of that, yeah, haven't been really up to much new nerdiness outside of my just kind of general Star Trek watching, comic book reading, and book reading, so. Which nice. I know sounds very blasé, but nothing new on my nerdy front, so.
Well, you know what? Happy belated birthday. I know I said happy birthday on Facebook, but I'm going to do it over the podcast. Happy belated birthday.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I'm 28 and everything is pain.
Oof.
Yeah. No. It's good. I'm happy. I'm excited. It's a good time to be alive. But yeah. So we're recording this podcast on March 14th, which is also Pie Day.
Woo. Yay. Does that mean we get to eat a lot of pie?
Sure. Let's go with that.
Yeah, that's the one. I know my things about math.
That's true. I mean, hey, neither of us are mathematicians. We're not that variety of nerd.
No.
So, when I was thinking about the history section for this week, I was kind of having, difficulty thinking about what might be a good topic to do it on. And then right around midnight, I was kind of given my answer, which was to pay respects to a pretty important person who lived in our lifetime, who sadly passed away today, Stephen Hawking. I was talking to my sister about it today, and she said something which I thought was, kind of interesting or rather profound, which was, it really feels like he's a very important historical figure that lived during our lifetime, which obviously that's true, but for a lot of people, but there was something about him in particular that felt really important, just considering all the contributions he did to science and things like that. And she said, it was almost I'm sure same way people felt when, they were living in the same time as Einstein, say. one might argue that he made as many contributions to the world of science as, Albert Einstein and maybe even, Isaac Newton and things like that. So I decided that maybe we should talk a little bit about Stephen Hawking, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So Stephen Hawking, I feel, has, for a lot of people, become rather prominent as a pop culture icon. On top of being a scientist, but he's appeared in a number of works, like he appeared in Futurama, in the episode Tales from Tomorrow, where Fry goes back into the past and doesn't actually get knocked into the machine, and he's kidnapped by Gary Gygax, Al Gore, Nichelle Nichols, Stephen Hawking, and the robot that plays chess. And Stephen Hawking voices himself in that episode. He's also appeared on The Big Bang Theory. He, I believe, has a Grammy for his work with the band Pink Floyd. Bet you didn't know that one.
Huh, I did not.
There's this song called Talking, and he does the intro and the outro on it, and I'm pretty sure that won a Grammy. I could be wrong on that one, though. I can check this back. But, of course, before all of those other things, first and foremost, he is a prominent theoretical physicist, cosmologist, author and director of research at the Center for Theoretical Cosmology at the University of Cambridge. He was an honorary fellow of the Royal Society of Arts, a lifelong member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and received a Presidential Medal of Freedom. So, he was an important man in all kinds of sciences throughout the world. He was also most notable for being, this prominent voice in science while also battling Lou Gehrig's disease. He was given a 2-year life expectancy and was able to defy all the odds and live all the way to 2018, which I think is pretty impressive. But Mr. Hawking was born in 1942 in Oxford to Frank and Isabel Hawkins, was partially Scottish, and both of his parents met at Oxford, where his father was studying medicine and his mother was studying philosophy, politics, and economics. And in 1950, his father actually became head of the Division of Parasitology at the National Institute of Medical Research, which meant that they, moved to Hertfordshire. So he's coming from an already pretty intelligent family, but he kind of just blew them all away because by the age of 17, he was enrolled at University College in Oxford. And I don't know about you, but, that's pretty impressive. At 17, I probably wouldn't be able to do that,
17 and a half, I was playing video games in my parents' house. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were about to drop that, at 17 and a half, you were also studying at Oxford. And I was like,
I was also a super smart guy. That's me.
Yes, a super smart guy. Yeah, I mean, and, at 17, I was also playing a lot of video games. When I say video games, I mean, RuneScape.
Hell yeah. That's a throwback.
Oh, RuneScape. Yeah, we should have a RuneScape up. But anyway, so yeah, initially was kind of a rather shy student because, he thought, and he found his work ridiculously easy, his words. But after time, he started, making friends at his school, things like that, and actually became a pretty prominent boater. He joined the college boat club and was in charge of a rowing crew. But, of course, he really starts to hit his stride when he starts working on his doctoral works. So he started having debates about the prevailing theory of the universe, or how the universe was created, rather, which was, the Big Bang versus the steady state theory. Big Bang eventually won out. And I don't think it's, I think it's an understatement to discuss just his level of importance throughout the scientific world. We have so many theories that we can thank him for throughout the world. His most famous book is his of course most prominent book is A Brief History of Time, which, while very technical, is also very approachable for a lot of people it was actually a bestseller for a record-breaking 237 weeks, which is pretty impressive for a book about science, because those books don't tend to do so well. He just had a way of making, these kind of big theories, while maybe, like not like an everyday household thing, approachable to the level that you could come in as a layman and get a basic idea of the world that he was living in. And, of course, as I mentioned earlier, he suffered from motor neuron disease, and while he, was dealing with this, he also became a huge advocate for disability advocacy. So in the 1990s, he, started fundraising, lecturing, and helping, members of the disabled community to make their worlds better and more accessible. And then finally, one last thing, he had some pretty fun views, I would argue. Like I said, he was kind of he was a very prominent science fiction fan, science fiction, I would say nerd. He appeared on Star Trek The Next Generation as a hologram of himself, but he was there in the show. He was featured in a Monty Python series, or skit rather, and he had become famous, for his sort of voice modulation machine, which allowed him to speak. And I think he was one of the very first people to have this wonderful, device that allowed him to be able to continue to communicate his amazing ideas to the world. And then I'm going to end with a fun little anecdote, and then you can ask me questions if you have any questions like that. So he was a lifelong Labour member, which is, the very left party in the UK. And there was a quote that I saw thanks to a friend, which basically said that his biggest regret in life was not running over the toes of Margaret Thatcher. Which I think's pretty funny. But yeah, I'm not going to get into too many details about his theories, just because to me a lot of it is, kind of goes over my head a little bit. He was prominent, or at least was in constant communication with string theory advocates, which string theory is, that's a thing, right?
Yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah, it's this idea of the universe is comprised of, the smallest parts of the universe. Was an advocate for CERN and the Large Hadron Collider, and was, like I said, one can't overestimate the amount of knowledge that he gave us. He was an advocate for so many wonderful scientific ideas throughout the world. And yeah, as my sister said, it really feels like we lived during the time of a person who's going to be as researched, talked about, and written about as people like, say, Albert Einstein, who is probably the most prominent scientist before Stephen Hawking. So,
yeah.
Any questions for me?
Questions? Probably not, but I will leave on. I'll leave on, mad respect for a guy who had to fight with something that was going to potentially take his life in 2 years to get so much out of it. And then not only that, but do vastly insane amounts of really cool and really good things for the world. Like,
I would agree with that.
Mad respect.
Yeah, 100%. Just what he was able to achieve while, losing, control of his body and things like that. It's incredibly impressive, and it's incredibly impressive, that he was able to give us so many very, very interesting ideas about the way that our universe world works. I think he's gotten us about as close as we can to maybe understanding how we even came to be, how we even got here. And that right there, I think, is one of the most impressive things that you can attribute to a person. So
yeah.
Rest in peace, Mr. Hawking. Thank you for all the contributions, and thank you so much for all the things you were able to do. So yeah, that's my little history section. It's kind of the passing of someone who will probably be widely remembered in the world of history. So
Yeah.
So the history section really didn't have anything to do with anything else this week, but I felt it was important. So
Yeah, for real. No, I totally get it. I think it's definitely worth noting such a key person, just like in history. Even if it is, I mean, this will be history, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to add this into the history section.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's kind of an in the moment thing, but it's one of those deals where it's in the moment, but it's something that is going to be widely remembered for I think a really long period of time.
I agree.
So yeah, that's my little history section. I want to hear about Ratman, Cody.
Okay, well, I got two small things before I get to Ratman.
Oh, yeah, okay. Go ahead. Ask me questions or talk to me.
Well, so in the world of video games,
yeah,
two very cool things happened this week and last week. Did you see the teaser trailer for the new Smash Brothers game coming out for the Switch?
No, I haven't.
Oh my god. It's nothing. It's nothing. There's no meat to it. It is the very definition of a teaser trailer.
Okay.
But last week I was just so excited for like 3 days because of like a 2-3 minute video. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I mean, isn't Splatoon coming?
Yeah, supposedly. I mean, we don't know. There's literally no specifics whatsoever. But rest assured, there will be some Splatoon shenanigans in this new Smash Brothers game.
So can I tell you a quick little anecdote before we move on?
Yeah.
So when Super Smash Brothers Brawl was, when they were releasing all the like teaser videos and things like that, there was a person that we knew in high school who kind of enjoyed being a troll, and he would, call up a friend periodically, and he would just say things like, "Mario confirmed for Brawl." That's right, Mario is confirmed, and I mean, like the big characters that like everyone would like know is going to be there,
Right.
because like there was so much like I think that was the first one where Snake appeared, right? In Brawl.
See, I don't remember them by their titles anymore. That's the one for the GameCube?
That was the one. No, that was the one for the
for the Wii.
I want to say, yeah.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just really funny because he'd be like, "Oh, Mario confirmed, Link confirmed for game." Like he was just saying the ones that were in the original game. Kirby, right. He's gonna be there. Donkey Kong, you bet. So Super Smash Brothers Switch.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think for what Smash Brothers is, I think the Switch is the perfect console for it, and just in terms of like what it's meant to be.
Okay.
Yeah, because like Switch has been advertised as the kind of mobile, play where you want, have a good time, play with your friends kind of console. Granted, we haven't seen. I mean, I haven't bought anything that would be like, oh, I'm going to take my Switch to a party and stuff like that. But I've had a good ton of fun with my Switch. So it'll be nice to see a multiplayer game that you can take around with you. I think I spent $20 to get a little pack for my Switch that fits in my backpack. Like I could take my Switch anywhere. Like it's
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, it's like the step above a phone in terms of like portable gaming.
That's pretty rad.
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. The second thing I wanted to add, I've talked about this before, but for those of you who have Amazon Prime, you also have what's called Twitch Prime. And Twitch in general is a streaming platform. It's on the internet. Basically, you can watch streamers play video games. I use it. I know you do. We've talked about it before.
Yeah.
But they just announced that on top of the premium streaming service subscription, every month you get 5 games that you can download, similar to like PlayStation Plus or Xbox Gold or Games with Gold. In this month, granted, this is all PC, I believe. I don't think this is for any of the consoles, so kind of PC exclusive. From the 15th to the 31st, you get Super Hot, which is pretty dope. You get Oxenfree, which I haven't played. Mr. Shifty, Shadow Tactics, which I have played Shadow Tactics, is really fun. You also get Tomb of Annihilation, which is the Dungeons and Dragons board game converted to a PC app thing. So yeah, you get 5 free games. And I guess this is also going to be a monthly switch. So once the 31st happens, if you haven't downloaded those games, they're gone. But the next month, there will be 5 other games that you can download. So pretty cool.
That's really cool. This is through Prime?
Yeah, this is through Twitch Prime. And
Twitch Prime.
Right.
I thought you meant Amazon Prime.
Well, they're the kind of the same thing. Twitch is now owned by Amazon. So if you have an Amazon Prime account, you have a Twitch Prime account. You just have to link them up or whatever. But I'm really excited to play the Tomb of Annihilation game because I hear the board game concept is super fun. I've played Super Hot. It is the weirdest, coolest first-person shooter I've ever played.
Well, it's kind of like a puzzle game, right?
Kinda, yeah. So, not to get super far into it, Super Hot is basically a first-person shooter where time stops while you're not moving. So it gives you this kind of creative shooter in a way where you have to dodge bullets and kill all the people on screen without dying. And every time you stop, time stops. So it gives you a moment to think about your next turn. So last week on March 8th, so last Thursday while I was editing, I was also watching people play Warhammer Vermintide 2.
Whoa, that's a crazy name.
It is. Basically, Vermintide 2 is fantasy Left 4 Dead. For those of you who don't know what Left 4 Dead is, it's a first-person shooter that's co-op, and the whole goal is to survive.
Okay.
Through hordes and hordes of zombies. So in Vermintide 2, same concept, but instead of playing in kind of a modern-day setting, you're in a fantasy Warhammer setting called Vermintide, and I'll probably screw this up or I don't say it all the way right. Basically, in Warhammer fiction, the Vermintide is the apocalypse end to the universe of Warhammer. And basically these rat men people, they're known as Skaven, basically overpopulate and take over the world.
Huh.
And so in Vermintide 2, you play as one of 5 Warhammer fantasy heroes, and you and 4 other players, co-op, go through these kind of objectives we have to go to this castle and do this thing in the castle, and all the time you're fighting hordes and hordes of rat men, and there's, different kinds of rat men, there's different, bosses that you can encounter, it's all random. And it's super fun. I picked it up on a whim. It's $30, so it's not the same price as your average game.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, for $30, I've been having a blast.
Hooray. Now, okay, correct me if I'm wrong. Is Left 4 Dead the one where you can create all the weird weapons? Like the lawnmower katana and stuff?
No.
What am I thinking
Left
of?
4 Dead is... you're thinking of Dead Rising. Dead Rising is kind of your mall zombie apocalypse. Anyways, not important. No, Left 4 Dead is the... Gosh, it came out a long time ago in internet time. But basically, there are four ragtag group of survivors who are basically just trying to survive the end time apocalypse.
Okay.
And they're fighting zombies. They had these special infected creatures like the Smoker, who would use his really long, gross tongue to snag people and pull them away from the group. And it was super popular. It was one of Valve's not first, but it was one of Valve kind of really put their hopes into this game, and it did really well. They made a second one, but yeah, Vermintide 2, to kind of get more specific on that.
Yeah.
You get to play as 5 different characters, and each character has 3 different kind of classes. So that's about 15 different ways to play the game. So there's your wizard, and your wizard has this, magic and can shoot fire out of the point of his staff, and there's mechanics to deal with that. And then you've got your elven ranger who's really good at shooting people with her bow, And then you've got your dwarven like fighter who's got like a sword or a axe and shield and gets in the thick of things. I mean, there is I feel like there's a pretty good chance that if you're looking for a certain playstyle, one of these classes is it.
Sounds pretty average.
Yeah, and I think the thing that kind of, standard, not average. But in this game, one of their big things is melee combat. So in Left 4 Dead, it was all about shooting guns, and it was modern day. So melee weapons weren't a real big part. But in this game, you have your attacks. You've got like a power attack where if you hold down the button, you can like kind of cleave or do more damage. There's like a block mechanic where you get like you can block with your weapon, and every time someone hits you with, while you're blocking, instead of taking damage, you just lose a bit of stamina, and eventually when you run out of stamina, you can't block anymore. You can dodge, and so there's this really like big heavy emphasis on being able to deal with the hordes of zombies in melee. And there's like there's skill trees, so every time you level up with, or every so many levels you level up with one of the characters, you get a perk that allows you to kind of change the way the game is played. So like the first one might be, oh, you're better at blocking, or oh, you're better at attacking people and stuff like that. So on top of that layer, there are randomly generated items. And so every time you complete a mission, you basically receive like a randomized loot crate. And you open that loot crate, and there's several different weapons for each class. So not every weapon plays the same. So like I'm playing the Witch Hunter, who is kind of like your mix between like a frontliner and like a ranged DPS. So, like, I jump in, I'm really quick, I can, like, do quite a bit of damage, but, like, I'm not supposed to be in the front line all the time. And I started off with just your standard sword, and then I got a loot box, and I got, like, a falchion, or if I'm probably butchering that name, but basically it's a different kind of blade, and it plays different.
Okay.
So it's a little slower than the weapon I had, but it does way more damage. And one of the cool things is, with this particular blade, if I aimed for the head, I had a higher chance of decapitating the rat creatures with my blade. Then I picked up another blade, which is totally different from the first two, and it's like it's a quick rapier, but I have a secondary ability where I shoot a pistol.
Okay.
So, and that was just one of many characters' different weapons. Like, I know the dwarfs' weapons are different from like the elves' weapons and so on and so forth. They did a really good job of keeping it very fresh for each of the different characters. Like, the characters don't feel the same.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah, and it's super fun. It came out for PC. There's a tentative release for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in 2018, but otherwise right now it's just on Windows.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it on the video. I mean, that's a lot to consume, but
yeah,
it was a very good week for video games.
It sounds like it. So, who do you want to be in? Who do you want to be in the new Super Smash Brothers? Who do you main?
That's a good question. So,
who do you main?
Who do I main? I actually, in the last game, I stopped using that term. I actually didn't main anybody. I just played whoever I wanted to at the time. It usually gravitated towards silly characters like Wario and like Luigi, just because I liked I just liked that they were silly, not necessarily that they were any good. But back in the day, in the GameCube version of Smash, I mained Ice Climbers for a really long time, and then I actually went to like a local gaming convention tournament and almost went first place with Peach on that day.
Whoa.
Yeah, it was super fun. I realized her down A is stupid.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I actually am really excited to see what new characters, besides the obvious Splatoon characters, that they're going to have. Because I feel like, and I don't know if this is I would say this is a good thing about Smash, but all of the other characters usually play very samey from game to game. So, like, Mario is going to play the same. His B is going to do a fireball, and the cape is going to be side B, and you can reflect projectiles and whatever. It's very rare to see that change. Like, there might be some change in how powerful it is from game to game, but there isn't, like, besides maybe Pit. Pit got a big change from his first appearance to the next game. But yeah, no, I'm more excited about the new characters and how they affect Kirby, because I always love Kirby's little hats.
Yes.
They're super cute and they're fun, and I always love playing Kirby characters simply to suck people up and actually not do really well. Just pretend to be them. What about you? What did you main in your Smash Brother days?
Oh man, all of the Smash Brothers.
Yeah.
I liked playing Ganondorf.
Hell yeah.
Because he was a scary wizard man.
He is a scary wizard man.
I liked playing Game & Watch for one reason and one reason only, which was every time I got Decision 9, I would yell about how that was my strategy to piss off Joel. And then, yeah, I mean, it was a game I was pretty good at Ike.
Okay, yeah, he's super strong.
He was super strong, and
he's a good dude.
I feel like he might be considered like a nerfy cheating character, but
that's all right. I don't feel like Smash is a very balanced game. So if there is a character that's OP or unbalanced, there's usually another character that's also OP and unbalanced. And I think that kind of balances itself in ways, unless you get into like hardcore, like I'm in the tournament scene for Smash Brothers.
Oh,
at least
Fox
for me.
Only.
Fox only.
Fox only found destination. But anyways, middle section. It's a middle section. My head section, middle section, middle section, middle section. It's middle section time.
I liked that. It had a very
It was a little soulful, I think.
Yeah, I was thinking soulful. Definitely got my heart feeling places.
It came straight from the heart.
That's what it sounded like.
And you're to blame. You give middle section a bad name. Anyways.
Okay. If you want to talk to us, if you want to ask us questions or just generally talk to us, you can follow us on Twitter at fandomr_podcast. That's where we'll be.
Yeah.
If you want to ask us questions, and I know a couple of our episodes were based on viewer questions. Mm-hmm. You can send us a private email at fanroulettepodcast@gmail.com. And for all of those who want to bring other people into the fandom roulette, but your friends are not quite as podcast savvy as yourselves, we got an easy place for you. You can you can go to www.fandomroulette.com, and all of our episodes are posted there, along with information about Joe, very specifically, and things that we're doing in the future. Like when our... Go on.
Very specifically?
Oh, well, I just wanted to add information about you.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's where our information is. We're also on...
we live.
That is where we live. We actually live in the internet.
No, let's not go crazy.
We're also on iTunes and SoundCloud. So if you got friends who listen to their podcast on iTunes, feel free to give us a rating, share us around. Same with SoundCloud. We're also we're also on Facebook.
We are on Facebook.
We will get in touch about how to get on that Facebook group, because Joe's afraid of robots taking over and assimilating everybody. Yeah,
I am. So sue me.
It is a fair assumption. I was just letting everybody know why.
Like, here's the thing. Why do you think I'm learning all these 18th century skills, Cody?
For the post-apocalyptic future where Arnold Schwarzenegger robots take over?
Yeah, we need to have our candles. How else will we see? But anyway, that was the middle section. Middle section. Middle section. Unless, Cody, do you have anything else from the middle section?
Nope, that's it.
Middle section. So yeah,
Very beautiful. I loved it.
Thank you. I really put my heart into that one. I think.
I think you did too.
Yeah. Is there a garbage boy this week or garbage?
There is a garbage boy this week. Well, it is not a boy. It is a garbage girl this week.
Okay. Doop doop. Who's that walking down the road? It's a randomly rolled person. Gave her all the backstory that you could, and it sometimes does make sense. It's a garbage boy. It's a garbage kid. Garbage kid. So
Anyways.
Welcome to Garbage Kids, where Cody makes a crazy character on the Xanathar's Guide to Everything Complete Randomization Table.
Right. So I love this book so much. I make a character every week because it is beautiful, and I think this week's is pretty good.
Oh, I'm excited.
So her name is Purity Strife.
Nice. That's good. That's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
What race is Purity Strife?
She is an elven rogue.
Ugh.
I know you don't like elves, but the dice rolled it, not me.
This is like our fourth elf.
Is it? No, it's not. Hold on.
It's at least our second elf.
No, we haven't done an elf yet.
Are you sure?
Yes, I write down all these characters because I use them later.
we had a gnome.
A gnome cleric last week.
We had a human.
We had a dragonborn villain. We had a human fighter. A tiefling barbarian. A dragonborn sorcerer. And a halfling.
Oh, I swear there was one elf.
This one. This is our first elf.
Yeah, well, look at me, I'm an elf. I have arrows. Pew, pew, pew. Oh, it's an elf rogue, too. Oh, very original Xanathar's Guide to Everything.
Oh, my.
Elf rogue.
Anyways, for those of you wondering what the hell we're talking about, this is a show within a show where I give people, hopefully, some creative juices to get their characters going. Or maybe you're a dungeon master who's listening and you're like, that sounds like a really good idea. I can play with that. I'm here for you.
There are juices coming from all over the place.
Oh god, no. Don't talk about my Talon fanfic.
No! Oh god!
Okay. So Purity Strife was born in the forest and knew her parents. Hold on, it gets worse.
Good.
She spent her early years in an orphanage because her parents abandoned her.
Whoa!
Yep, sorry, Disney. Purity would then move in with an... What?
Like the Woods orphanage?
Sure, no, she must have stumbled upon an orphanage somewhere.
In the woods? Okay.
Yes, in the woods. Because that's where elves live, I guess.
I mean, sure.
Sure. And you know what? These questions I give to the players, the people who are listening.
Oh.
Because maybe they have an idea already.
Okay.
Because I sure as hell don't.
Sure.
So Purity would then move in with a new family and live a comfortable lifestyle in a mansion with a few close friends.
Whoa. Moving on up.
Yeah.
I see.
She decided to turn her natural lucky streak into the basis of a career, realizing improving her skills would be essential. The reason she became a rogue.
Good.
Purity is now 50 years old, which in this is 50 years old for like a human. So like pretty old.
Wait, I thought she was an elf though.
She's an elf, so like that doesn't apply, but like the way the table works is she's old. She is older.
It's like a drop in the hat for an elf.
I know.
She's a young buck.
Okay, so we're gonna say Purity is a mature adult with many life events before her current adventure.
Okay.
First, Purity would meet an important person. I'll leave that to the audience. Next,
it was me.
Next, she spent a time thieving to gain a bit of extra coin.
Oh.
Purity would
Rookie.
gain a bit of good fortune and acquire a stipend from a distant relative to live comfortably for many years.
Oh, that's nice of that relative.
Yeah, Uncle Charlie.
Uncle Owen.
Purity.
And Peru.
Purity fell in love with a noblewoman for a time who was also an adventurer.
Ooh.
I know, right?
I like it.
Because of this blossoming romance, she made an enemy with a rival adventurer.
Oh, no.
I know.
Scandal.
Finally, and what leads to today, Purity's hometown would suffer from a blight that caused crops to fail and people to get sick. She would lose her adopted... Well, it gets worse. She would lose her adopted family during this blight.
Oh, shit.
Right. Her life is a roller coaster. And everybody involved, this was the long and short of Purity's strife. The Elven Rogue.
Yeah. Elves. Sure, elves. Oh, man, look at me. I'm an elf. I get weird stat bonuses or whatever. Although, you know what? After a friend of ours started playing an elf, I realized that they're not quite as broken as Tolkien elves. So, like, I still don't like them, but I don't hate them as much as I hate Tolkien elves, so. Yeah.
Okay.
That's my own beef. Well, garbage kid. Okay, got the outro music out of there.
Right.
We did it.
We did it.
So, anyways, what do we talk about in our RPG section today?
Right. So we jumped out of the episode back into another episode.
Whoa, I'm getting dizzy.
I know, right? Don't worry, the audience will come to their senses soon.
Oh gosh, okay. I believe in them. They're probably way smarter than us, so.
So yeah. I had a hard time thinking about something relevant or something like relevant, I guess is the word. D&D doesn't quite update as much as say video games do weekly. Sure. So I browsed the internet to mostly sit and figure out what the general consensus of the people are who go on the internet to talk about role-playing games.
Whoa.
And I've seen this argument or this conversation come up a lot. And in the basic rules, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, I think, that your typical adventuring day, giving normal conditions and things like that, parties can handle up to 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters in a day. If there are more easy encounters, or if there are easy encounters, they can handle more. And if there are deadly encounters, they handle less. And there is a mathematical way to gather or to figure out what is a medium versus a hard encounter. And so if you've played in any of my games, I don't follow that rule at all. Well, 6 to 8 encounters.
Wait, you DM?
Oh, yes. For everyone watching, or for everyone listening, I'm a dungeon master, for the most part. Yes.
I've never known this.
Yeah. So in role-playing games, I often facilitate the rules and create encounters and situations for Joe and our other friends to basically stumble through.
That's true. And stumble we do.
So the Dungeon Master's Guide, which is basically the book that I'm supposed to read to kind of be aware of how the game is supposed to be played, they're telling me that in a single day, you are supposed to deal with 6 to 8 encounters that test your mind, your resources, your spells, etc., etc.
Really? So, like, that's a lot of encounters.
Right. So if you think of an adventuring day, in the way that the Dungeon Master's Guide tells you, if you go into a dungeon, you're supposed to basically fight 8 different groups of rats or goblins or whatever.
Huh.
Granted, I'm I'm being a little facetious with how I'm saying this because I'm here to tell you that I think this 6 to 8 is often, what's the word I'm looking for? It's often
overwhelming.
It's an overwhelming number, but I think it's not said correctly.
Okay.
I think it needs to be a little more specific. Because you
Okay.
think, because when I tell you, you are about to enter an encounter.
Yes.
Most people who come from video games and things like that think, oh, okay, we got to fight these guys. Like, encounter equals fight.
I've never encountered those party members before.
No, not at all.
He said sarcastically.
I'm here to tell you that if you plan to do 6 to 8 encounters a day in an adventuring day, not all of those should be in any form all monster fights or all battles that you have to fight.
Okay.
I think 6 to 8, and I've heard various like people from Wizards of the Coast, Mike Merles. I'm lapsing on the other guy's name, who does a lot of like the play testing and like balancing and kind of determining whether or not something is rules as written versus rules as intended.
Okay.
I think 6 to 8 medium or hard encounters includes you encounter a person in a dungeon. You don't necessarily have to fight them. Hell, you can even convince them to join your side. But that's an encounter.
Okay.
So, last week, I did a session with you and our adventuring group.
Yes.
You guys fought a group of shadows, which are basically Dementors from Harry Potter.
That is true.
You encountered a room with a deadly trap in it. You talked with a elderly dwarven gentleman who taught you how to get through the trap room.
Mm-hmm.
And then you fought 4 elves on the other side of that trapped room.
There's one other thing. We had to determine whether or not we were going to fight the magical prison.
Right. And then there was the moral dilemma of whether or not to continue down this crypt to do the thing you originally set out to do, or deal with a magical prison that happened to also be in the same area. So in essence, I gave you 5 encounters, even though and I feel like what happens is some people would have seen, well, no, they only dealt with 2 people. They dealt with the shadows and then they dealt with a group of elves. But I'm here to tell you that I think 6 to 8 encounters includes conversing, it includes exploring, it includes rooms with traps or puzzles that need to be solved.
Mm-hmm.
I think the 6 to 8 would be, personally, boring and unfun if they were all just straight battle encounters.
I would be inclined to agree with that. Yeah.
With the exception being that every fight had some kind of significant importance to it.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, remember when you guys had to run through the gauntlet?
At which point?
To give people background, I gave one of their party members a way to change their class. A new Unearthed Arcana came out, and it was more to the player's liking. And so I said, sure, you can switch to that class, but I'm not going to give it to you for free. So what happened was they had to defend their party member who was like unconscious and, kind of changing classes. And then the rest of the party had to fight waves upon waves of enemies until it was done.
It was fun.
That was fun. And it was about 6 encounters, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty long. So I'm here to tell you.
A whole day.
Yeah, it was a whole day. I'm here to tell would-be DMs and people who argue on either side of this. I think it's safe to say that it's more. We're in a modern age of gaming. We have video games. We have Netflix shows. We have all this technology. And I think the idea of random battles from your days of old JRPGs where you might fight 10 12 battles before getting to something super important, I think those days are over. At least in my head.
Yeah.
I think if you're going to do 6 to 8 encounters, those encounters should mean something.
I would agree with that.
And so, for the people at home, when we did our session last week, those 5 encounters, they were all important. They all had some kind of meaning, and even the week before that, the encounters that you fought before then, those were all encounters that were either going to teach you something, challenge you, or reveal a part of the story that you didn't know until that point.
That is true.
And I feel like that's a better way to think about it than just like, I need 6 to 8 encounters and they're all going to be rats and blah, blah, blah. It's like, no. I think it's a very hammy way of dealing with the encounter system.
Yeah. I'm inclined to agree with that.
Yeah, because I know I'm on the Dungeon Master side, so I think I'll give you a minute to talk about how you feel about it, because in the end, you're the one who's affected by this.
Yeah, I've been thinking like a lot about this as we've been playing our campaign and things like that, and like I'm finding that like when I first started playing like in high school and like in early college, like it was very much like a power fantasy where it was like all I wanted to do was be very, very strong and kill things very, very good.
Okay.
And so it's like I loved combat because like, oh man, I get to kill like orcs and you know this and that and things like that. And this campaign I'm finding like obviously I enjoy combat because like that's when you get to throw out your fun utility spells and that's when you get to roll lots and lots of dice for damage and things like that. But it's like, I think the most fun I have is, like, when I get to, like, roleplay the character. Like, developing story and, like, coming up with, like, weird, cheeky little lies that my character has made to, like, get me out of tight spots and things like that. Like, when I promised another character, like, a dwarven life debt. And I rolled really well on a deception check. And it's one of those deals where it's like, I would agree with you where it's like, If the fight feels like it means something, I'm more inclined to have fun with it, or I'm more inclined to be engaged with it, versus just like you walk into a room and there's like 15 kobolds, kill them, and then I guess my other thing too is like I've been trying really hard to think of a way to make combat more interesting to me, in that making it more difficult. If that makes sense.
Sure. Challenging yourself.
Yeah, challenging myself. So it's like trying to figure out a way of ending an encounter non-lethally, for example. Or like, which like we successfully pulled off in our friend's one-shot campaign, where my monk character jumped down and like I threw a crossbow bolt back to her, back on her and hit her, this NPC, but then we were able to like talk her down and like actually sway her over to the side, and for me that's like way cooler than just like if we had done yet another fight like with her, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I just think it's a matter of, it's like I like having a variety of encounters and I like the encounters to matter, and like just in terms of, I also like to think of a way that like I can make an encounter feel a little bit more challenging, I suppose, in the sense that it's like figuring out creative ways to get out of it, like with maybe having to not kill every single person, or like figuring out the lay of the land to like maybe do something that impacts the environment that like might, help us get out of that encounter faster, things like that. I don't know. I feel this time around I'm having more fun with the role-playing aspect than just with the like, let's get to that next fight. There have been sessions where we haven't even gotten into a fight, and those have been some of my favorites. So,
right, and that's not to say. Again, this is prefaced with every table is a little different.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, even members of our own party like combat more than say I do. So,
right, I just think that currently, like the way it's worded, I know it doesn't say these all have to be, combat encounters. But I think coming from that video game background, where it's like encounters typically means like some kind of fight, it is worth remembering as a dungeon master or as a player It doesn't have to always be combat. It can just be, talking to two dwarves in disguise. Or it could just be fighting that radical zealot monster hybrid thing that is creating a pillar of bones and ash. It could be anything. It doesn't just have to be you fight 14 kobolds. Maybe you hurt a couple of them, you knock them out, and then you're like, whoa, we just want to talk. And maybe they end up becoming your allies or something. Like, as a DM, I implore you to think outside of the box when it comes to encounters, because otherwise you'll run into that DM drought, or that, like, I have to do these 5 encounters, and, because my characters are new, or, are wizards or whatever, combat takes forever. Well, then make less of them. Personally, I usually run 2 to 3 hard to deadly encounters. Depending on the situation, I like to have a little more grit. I like my players to, at the end of the session, be like, damn, we all almost died, but we made it, kind of a situation. Which, if I remember correctly, your character's like at what, 1 HP?
No, like 5 HP, thank you very much.
Yeah, so I feel like I've done my justice.
I did go down like 3 times in that dungeon, but...
It's true, you did, but you did make it.
Also, how did my boys do in the jail?
They did not do well.
Oh,
they rolled a nat 1 on like the first bit, and so it went pretty south for them. Anyways,
yeah. Moving into that last section. So, like I said, Cody, you saw this like what, last weekend, and I saw it. Or 2 weeks ago, and I saw it this past weekend. But we both saw Black Panther.
So good.
It was really good. I had seen a lot of stuff leading up to this movie where, it was like one of the best Marvel movies. It did a lot of things that a lot of Marvel movies, struggle with and things like that. And I would say that I agree with all of the assessments. I think it was one of the smartest Marvel movies that I've seen. One of the visually coolest.
Yeah, for sure.
And just a movie where every single member of that cast, like, you want to see more of in every possible way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, for those of you who aren't aware, Black Panther is a Marvel superhero from the 60s, I want to say, who was created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. And he was one of the earliest examples of an African American character, or an African character in Marvel, and also this concept, a sci-fi concept called Afrofuturism, which is basically this speculative science fiction thing, which was like, what if African civilizations were the ones who created all of these technological advancements. So kind of like steampunk, but in Africa. And also if it was more like space age versus like gears and zeppelins and such. And so yeah, T'Challa is the Black Panther, who is the king of Wakanda, which is this mysterious nation in, depending on the comic, either Eastern Africa or Central Africa, which to the outside world initially looks kind of rural and idealistic, but it is hiding the fact that it is actually one of the most advanced cultures in the entire Earth, because they have access to vibranium, which is the strongest metal in the world, and it's also impacted their animals and their plant life and things like that. And the Black Panther is sort of their mystical leader who takes the heart-shaped herb, which is an herb that has been impacted by vibranium, to turn him or her into this sort of like superhuman protector figure. So the film stars Chadwick Boseman as T'Challa, who I think crushes it. Would you agree with that? I'm gonna
have to agree with you.
Yeah, he's very cool, while at the same time simultaneously being kind of like dorky and adorable. Like a through line of it is that he is in love with Nakima, who is played by Lupita Nyong'o, who I would argue is one of our finest actresses working right now. She was in 12 Years a Slave, won an Academy Award for that performance, which was amazing. And then she was also Maz Kanata in Star Wars. And, like, one of the first times you see him, he's getting ready to go on a mission to save her, and they tell her, don't freeze when you see her, and literally as soon as he sees her, he freezes and gets attacked. It was adorable. One of the things I've been seeing about Black Panther is it has one of the best villains in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and I would agree with that.
Oh, finally, somebody says it. Holy crap.
I know, right? Oh, man,
He's so good. Like, get it. You get it. Like, you almost feel bad that he's the villain.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, it's so...
also, spoilers for future... I know we're going to talk about it, but spoilers for Black Panther. Spoiler.
Oh, yeah. Spoilers.
I mean, we didn't reveal who it was or anything like that, but we're going to.
Yeah. So, you actually kind of get a dual villain thing going on initially.
Yeah.
Because initially, T'Challa thinks and is fighting his main villain, who's a guy named Ulysses Claw, who is a sort of... In the comics, he looks and dresses very much like an Imperial British explorer. He's actually German, but is a miner, and he knows that the vibranium is down there, and he's always trying to steal the vibranium from T'Challa and Wakanda. And his thing is, he has this robot arm that uses vibranium to shoot sonic waves. And so he's like ostensibly Black Panther's main villain, and in this movie he's played perfectly by Andy Serkis, who turns in like a very big, broad, hammy performance. It was some good ham right there.
Yes, it was.
It's like a ham sandwich. No. And one of the really interesting things of their portrayal of Claw as well is the fact that he's constantly referring to the Wakandans as savages, but like at the same time he also seems to really love like black culture. So like he's constantly listening to rap music, and he apparently has a mixtape that you can find on SoundCloud and things like that, which might be a joke, but also is presented with a level of seriousness that this guy might actually have that.
Yeah.
But the sort of main villain, Claw, is working with this guy named Killmonger, who is played by Michael B. Jordan, who is just so good in this movie.
It's fantastic.
The first moment that you see him, it's just so good. And like you were saying, I would say he's a really sympathetic villain. Yeah, I would say he's a sympathetic villain.
No, he's sympathetic. I mean, his whole thing is like he's his whole life, his family and his culture has been getting fucked, and Wakanda has the resources to do something about it. And so he goes on this rampage, or not rampage, but like he spends his whole life training because he knows he's, spoilers, somewhat related to the
royal throne.
The royal throne.
And he knows that there's this like futuristic nation in the middle of Africa that hides its gifts and its technology from the world, and is kind of sitting idly by as, human, as African diaspora is being oppressed and infighting and dealing with, the racism of, the white man and things like that. And he calls them out on it, saying like, why are you just sitting idly by as you watch our people get destroyed? And his solution is to basically let the power of Wakanda empower, people from the African diaspora to rise up and take over. And there's the argument that's thrown throughout the film that at that point they would become the colonizers themselves. It's that, fascinating, conversation of, at what point, how far is too far, I suppose?
Right.
I don't know. And I actually read a really interesting theory online, or an interesting thing, which was Killmonger and Nyaka, I believe her name is, who's the Lupita Nyong'o character, actually have the same argument throughout the film, but they approach it in very different ways, and the main difference is that Killmonger's argument is one that's kind of embedded in, like, toxic masculinity.
Okay.
Because her character is also advocating that Wakanda, take down their borders and help the people of the world, but she's advocating through, like, technological advancements, like, let's give healthcare, let's give aid, let's give all of these wonderful technological advancements that your sister is inventing in our laboratory from time to time to the world. Like, we could really help out the world. And T'Challa's big fear is, if they find out about that, then they might find out about the weapons. And then Killmonger's whole thing is, let's use the power of Wakanda, but, like, only the weapons.
Right.
And so her thing is, we can help out the world by showing all of the wonderful things that vibranium can do in the sort of non-aggressive sense, with, medicinal, that bed that, like, can heal spinal injuries.
Right.
Creating clothing that, is affordable and things like that. But to both T'Challa and Killmonger, who are raised with, like, a level of masculinity, their only end game is weapons and violent conquest, whereas hers is, aid and charity and things like that. And I think that's a really interesting comparison to make in that film as well.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to talk about my favorite character in the whole movie, which is his sister Shuri.
Yeah.
She's wonderful. Shuri is T'Challa's little sister, and she is also a tech genius who invents all of the really awesome tech that T'Challa uses throughout the movie. She is very, very funny. She's really charming, and she's also wicked smart. And I'm super looking... If the Russo brothers are, like, smart, I think that there should be a hilarious scene in Infinity Wars where Tony Stark sitting there having a real difficulty with some technological thing, and then Shuri just walks by, like, looks over his shoulder, is like, oh, you just have to do this and this and this, because, like, I think the implication is that she's smarter than Tony Stark.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Yeah, the way the movie plays out.
I think that would be amazing. It would be one of my top Marvel moments if she upstaged Tony Stark at his game, which is technology.
Right.
But yeah, gosh, it was just such an amazing, really cool experience. What did you think of the ending? Because I got really emotional at the ending.
Yeah, it was a very emotional ending.
So yeah, like, if you're this far, you've already, like, I'm going to say spoilers again, but if you've made it this far, like, spoilers.
Right.
It's like, God, just the last scene is, he buys the building that Eric grew up in Oakland, California, and they're going to turn it into the Wakandan Institute of, like, learning and technology. And it's this group of young black kids, playing basketball in the parking lot outside the building, and then the ship that the Wakandans have lands, and Shuri walks in because she's going to teach them about how it works. And, these kids are talking about, like, how they're, these kids are, like, going to learn about technology and all this stuff. And then the one kid looks over at Black Panther, and he looks up at him, and he goes, who are you? And he just smiles, and it cuts to Black Panther, and it's just, like, it's
all
just
the
such
feels.
it's just such, like, a beautiful, like, hopeful moment. And God, it was a good feeling. Also, like, Chadwick Boseman is so effortlessly charismatic in that movie. Like, there's a few times where all he has to do is smirk, and, like, oh my God, he's the most charming motherfucker in the room. I couldn't recommend this movie highly enough. It was a lot of fun. Oh, we didn't even talk about my other favorite character. Shuri is my favorite character, and then tied for my favorite character is M'Baku, the white ape.
Okay.
he was so good. So can I tell you my favorite thing about the Jabari tribe?
Sure.
It's like everyone else, like all of their weapons, like have some elements of vibranium in it. Where it's like Watabi's crew, like they have their like vibranium rhinos, and their like their capes can turn into vibranium shields. Like they have like those like circular blades with vibranium in them. You have those like really cool iron gauntlets that shoot like vibranium sound, and then like the Jabari show up and they're just like big.
They're just big
like,
dudes.
They just have clubs and they're just big. Like they don't have anything vibranium associated with them at all, and I thought that was super rad. Because it's just like, while you guys were developing all of your like vibranium technology, like we were just up here like working out and just getting really swole.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie. I highly recommend it. Any thoughts? Because I feel like I've been talking a lot.
I think two things. One,
yeah,
I thought the supporting cast was actually, what's the word I'm looking? I think they were better, honestly, than like as much as Black Panther was charismatic, he wasn't very good at his job.
No,
and that was the point, right? Black Panther like alone is like a strong superhero with vibranium technology and stuff, but like his sister and his wife, girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, whatever you want to,
sure,
like they kicked more ass in most of the movie than he did.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
And so, like, I feel like in this movie, the supporting cast really, like, showed through on a level that we haven't seen in a Marvel movie. Because most of the time it's, I'm the superhero, I have to go do the thing. And they're very, it's very much about the superhero. But what was nice about this is it wasn't just about the superhero. It was everything around him, like, all of his choices and all of his actions were affecting everybody around him, which I liked. I think it was a better story than to focus more on him.
I would agree with that.
And then my second thing is, now I just wish that we could remove Iron Fist from existence, because this was perfect.
Yeah.
Iron Fist is garbage.
Sure.
And this movie shows that like there was another option. There was another way to do that.
Yeah. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, and I just loved everything about Black Panther. There was, I had no complaints. The villain was actually relatable this time, instead of just some guy in a business suit who could do the same thing as the superhero, or fucking dark elves from another dimension, or, guy who wants to open up, another reality because
the dark
demons... Portal. Like, this was actually a legitimate hero or villain.
Yep.
Who, at points, I'm like, man, it sucks that he's on the wrong, like, that he's the villain in this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you feel for him.
Yeah.
He's got motivations that make sense instead of, I have a bunch of money, or I need more power from the dark dimension. Like, it was just, overall, these are what Marvel movies should be.
Yeah.
And I think, and it took them a bit, but I think from here, hopefully it'll only go up.
I would agree with that. Also, one last two quick things, and then I think we should wrap up. So, the first, the director Ryan Coogler, who is also the director of Creed, which is a movie I've heard is very good. I haven't seen yet. Also starring Michael B. Jordan, but there's a sequence where they go to South Korea. And it feels very much like a James Bond movie. Like, man, I want him to direct, like, a slick, like, black spy thriller movie. I think that would be so cool.
Yeah.
Probably starring Michael B. Jordan, because, like, he's in all of his movies. He's kind of his muse. And then the other thing is, so, for a while, and I think it's still the case in the comics, Shuri is also Black Panther.
Okay.
Because... basically, everyone's like, hey, T'Challa, you're always, like, off hanging out with the Avengers. You're not actually leading Wakanda at all. And so they actually come to an agreement where Shuri is the queen of life and Wakanda, and then T'Challa becomes like the king of death and kind of like the ferryman for death. So he can go off and do his superheroing, but he doesn't have to be in charge of Wakanda's day to day. And I think that would be a really cool thing that they could do in the sequel, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's dope.
Black Panther gets 2 thumbs up from me.
For me, 3 thumbs up. I grew a 3rd thumb just to give another thumb up.
Well, the shit, I give it 5 thumbs up. So.
Shit, we could go on forever. Let's just say that if we could grow thumbs, we would just keep thumbing this movie as much praise as possible.
Yep, we'll just keep giving it praise and not talk. Yep, all right. So, anyways, I'm good. I think that's a good thing to wrap up on. Thank you guys so much for listening to Fandom Roulette. We appreciate it. Like us and rate us on iTunes and share SoundCloud with friends and awesome things. It's been a pleasure doing this. Yeah, all the things. Signing off. I'm Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.